Going back about 8 years ago, my wife and I bought our first home together. And so we started to think about how we furnish the property. And my wife turned to me one night and said, why isn't there like an aggregator or one website like a Rightmove, but for furniture, where everything comes into one website and you can compare across the market, you can see products from different retailers, big and small.
So that origin story about like being your first customer is interesting because Sirio, that's similar with you, right? You started off in the publishing side and then found a problem.
I used to work for a deal platform where we consolidated deals and coupons. We didn't really know what was converting. Every month we had to get our commission data from the affiliate networks, and we were using like 200 different network accounts. The biggest problem was that all the different affiliate networks, they had solutions in place like APIs and postbacks, but there was no standard. All of them are different. So we had to figure out for each of these networks, how can we actually get the data? And also, how can we track unique identifiers? And figuring all of it out and then really also then implementing it also took, of course, quite a while.
Was this one of the first problems you encountered? And is this also, what led you to working with wecantrack?
The first thing actually that we were trying to solve was the fact that we were spending money in other digital channels. And what was happening was we were advertising on Google, we're advertising on Meta. But what we didn't have clarity on was people coming through that funnel on ufurnish.com and then clicking out to the advertisers and converting to purchase. So what we wanted to be able to do was build an attribution model that told us what the channels are actually doing. And then from there, we started to look at more integrated solutions around people coming onto the site, the journeys they were taking, because once you had acquired someone, let's say you'd acquired them through Google, they weren't coming through Google again, they were actually coming direct onto the website. So what we wanted to understand was what was the behavior of that particular person or these people, what journeys were they going on, what clicks were they making out to advertisers, and then what purchases were they making and within what window. And the wecantrack platform gave us that consolidated view on the network side.
In the beginning, it's often similar. They want to integrate the data in Google Analytics, Google Ads, and so on, and just get an overview of page level attribution and traffic sources and websites. But a lot of them stop there. They're happy with getting the data in the platforms that they're using, like ad networks. But for instance, what you did, now using BigQuery and everything, that's usually the more sophisticated publishers that are doing that.
My sense on this is a publisher business 5-10 years ago, maybe that was enough and you didn't need it.
Yeah, this is really a very important topic because I see a lot of publishers that are not doing it at all. Then they wonder, hey, why did I lose all my revenue suddenly just because there was a core change at Google or something? Yeah, if you don't diversify, you cannot be surprised that things will go bad at one point. You really need to start diversifying your traffic channels. And in order to do that, you need to be able to identify how are your channels performing?
Yeah, the aha moment for us around partnering with wecantrack came from the visibility we got based on people's behaviors on ufurnish.com and the likelihood for them to click out to a retailer or an advertiser and actually complete a conversion. So what we learned through it is that the people who are most engaged, who are then converting into, purchases, actually were the ones that were coming on organically and directly. So it actually gave us insight based on here's how we're actually building into people using our platform, but actually this is where we're more likely to drive an outcome from.
Yeah, actually a lot of publishers think that tracking clickouts gives them a good overview of what is actually also driving sales. A lot of publishers have this aha moment where they suddenly see, oh, this page is generating a lot of sessions and clicks, but it's not driving any sales. And then you need to investigate why is that actually happening.
I think it's a really interesting point you mentioned about becoming a brand. Can we explore a bit more about why that's important?
You think of like super salient brands in the UK. So like Rightmove, they completely own their market. They're incredibly well trusted by people out there in market. So you'd be hard pressed to find someone wanting to buy or rent a property in the UK that wouldn't be familiar with Rightmove and probably just circumvent Google and go straight to that platform because it's known, it's trusted, and that's what people do. And like they get billions and billions of website visits every single year. So we think of it in the same way, where we need to stand for something. We need to lead the home furnishing category. We need people to think of ufurnish.com first. We're not about just chasing traffic for traffic's sake. What we want is we want people coming on, using our platforms that understand what this will do for them and how it makes their life easier, and then making meaningful connections with our advertisers. So that when our advertisers look at what they get from ufurnish.com, the connection with the consumer, highly qualified people actually coming out to their website who have been through a journey of doing their diligence on products, they're not just getting a website visit, they're actually getting incremental customers. And that's really, really critical for us. But you can only achieve that if you properly build a brand. And if you build a brand and you build saliency, it can't be taken away from you by, let's call them helpful updates that Google puts out there, or any of those sorts of things that might influence your business. And then what you're trying to do is calibrate your creative to connect with those people so that you're solving a problem for them. They see that through your creative. They're coming on, they're hitting the metrics that you want them to hit on your website, and then you've got them. So that's how we calibrate the brand bit. And that's how I'm seeing brands who are doing really well actually do it as well. Like they've moved away from just chasing people at the bottom of the funnel, which is a bit of an endless pit, if I'm being honest.
I suspect one of the strengths of ufurnish and one of the comparable weaknesses of publishers that aren't doing this is actually they don't share enough information about the customer types that they are acquiring, or even the expectations of the customers that you are referring.
There are executives within businesses that have to make decisions, and those decisions are accountable to a board who's trying to drive outcomes on behalf of shareholders, whoever it may be. The execs need high-level information. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And is it easy for us to understand? And are we succeeding? I then think of like our role and the role of the affiliate business within the overall strategy as how are we articulating our value proposition to those execs so that they're leaning in and they can quantify that to their board when they're pushed, right? Because everyone wants to drive the right outcomes and they need certainty, or as much certainty as they can get. So when you then play that back into, how are you selling in insights? The insights that you're offering are actually allowing those people to say, you know what? We believe that if we put more money into the affiliate channel over the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to help us grow our brand awareness by X, incrementally reach more consumers by Y, and put X amount on our bottom line. So we believe we should lean into this. And what we're asking for is the board to run with us on it.
There's a growing concern, or I hear it a lot, around LLM scraping publisher content and not recognizing the effort, the value that's been put into that by the publisher. Do you hear this as well? Is this something that you are worried about from a ufurnish perspective as well, Ray?
The fact that LLMs can come along and take your content and use that for their own benefit is a little bit frightening. In our case, it's not really an issue because our content is products from advertisers on ufurnish.com. So actually, if those products and the fact that they're on ufurnish.com enable the LLMs to see us as a point of authority and then to index us within results that come back from questions that people are asking the LLMs, then that's not a bad thing for us. So what we work on in and around that is how the LLMs see us as a trusted source. So what signals can we send into those platforms through the way that we push content out there and authority? That's sort of what we focus on.
From a wecantrack perspective, do you hear this from publishers? Do you see it in any of the results that you're able to see?
The thing is, AI results are not converting as much as well as organic traffic. Also, the numbers of sessions do not seem to be as high as back then from organic traffic. So people are doing a lot of research in these AI platforms, but they're not necessarily clicking out through these links and then making a purchase. It's not really an acquisition channel yet, in my opinion. It could become so, though.
When you look at most of the papers about LLMs and how we should think about that in terms of them being a point of reference for our businesses as publishers, it's actually a brand building exercise more than it is, let's say, an SEO opportunity. And the reason being is, people will see your brand referenced within citations on LLMs. And actually, that's an opportunity for you to build trust and credibility with someone who's consuming that content and asking questions and trying to engage almost in a conversation with the LLMs. So rather than thinking about it from the perspective of, I need to get that click through to my site, it's the citation needs to show me as the authority in this space. And if that supports the rest of your model around how you bring people towards your brand, your product, your platform, that's actually the objective, as opposed to I'm just chasing clicks. That's my opinion on where it sits.